So here we are, Baruch Hashem, back to Maseches Shabbos, Kuf Nun Hey Amud Aleph, in the Mishnah. The topic is preparing food for your animal. Are you allowed to prepare food for your animal on Shabbos or not? What are the details? We're going to see a Mishnah, the Machloikis, how to explain the Mishnah, and Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to get it right. This year, like all my other shiurim, are Ilu Nishmas, my father, Menachem ben Akiva, and for the Hatzloch and Hatzalo of Klal Yisrael, all the missing people, Oleinu, all the hostages should come back home quickly. The Mishnah, before we continue, before we even start, let's just remember the two concepts that exist in Meleches Shabbos. First of all, there is an Isser on Shabbos to be Toreach, to do extra tircha, extra unnecessary work is Asr in Shabbos, even if it does not involve any of the 39 melachos. That's A. B, one is not allowed to create a new thing on Shabbos, even if it does not fall under the category of any of the 39. Yeah, in other words, we have two concepts that will come into play in this Mishnah, and we're going to dive right in. Says the Mishnah, Matirin Pkiei Amir Lifnei Behema. Pkiei Amir are basically bundles that are tied, bundles of hay, of straw, bundles of straw that are animal food, fodder, and they're tied, yeah, they're knotted in a few places. And when you want to serve them to your animal to eat on Shabbos, you're allowed to untie them. Matirin. It says here matirin. And then umefaspesin is a kefin. The second item mentioned in the Mishnah, kefin. There will be an argument in the Gemara as to what kefin means. Let's say kefin means also a different type of food. We're going to see what that means. Those you're not only allowed to be matir, to just untie the knots, you're also allowed to lefaspes, to spread them out in front of the animal, do the extra bit, not just to untie but also to spread. Avaloi es zerin. Zerin is a third kind of animal food to be explained in the Mishnah, in the Gemara. And the zerin, you are not allowed to do what? There will also be an argument in the Mishnah, in the Gemara. Basically, we have three items in the Mishnah. There is Pkiei Amir, there is Kefin, and there is Zeirin. We have a chart, we'll see later. Yeah, there's Gabir Machlokes Amaroim as what does each one mean. There's Pkiei Amir, Kefin, and Zeirin. And some of them you're allowed to untie, unbundle, but you can't spread them out. Some of them you can spread them out too. What are they? Everything, Be'ezras Hashem, will be clear in the Gemara. Continues the Mishnah more about taking care of your animal food. Ein meraskin, one's not allowed to cut, to dice, and cut small. Lo yisa shachas, v'lo yisa charuvin. You're not allowed to cut the shachas. Shachas is a kind of animal food that's a pasta, like sprouts, something that sprouts very quickly from the ground, and is animal food. You can't cut it to the animal. This is like nice grassy kind of thing. Charuvin are, yeah, carobs. Charuvin, you're not, they're harder, and you can't cut them either. Those you can't cut on Shabbos. Lifnei behema, can't cut them for your animal. Ben daka uben gasa, whether the animal is a young, smaller animal. Usually behema daka means sheep and goats. Uben gasa, or animal gasa, which is a cow, which has stronger, harder teeth. So whether the animal is daka and it's harder for the animal to eat, or gasa, it's easy for the animal to eat, whatever the event may be, you're not allowed to cut the food for them according to Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda matir b'charuvin l'daka. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Rabbi Yehuda argues on Tanakama and says you are allowed to cut charuvin, which are hardish. You're allowed to be matir, to cut them if the animal is a smaller animal. You can cut the charuvin for that animal. We are in the Gemara Kuf Nun Hey Amud Aleph, yeah, after the Mishnah. We just started now. We're just about to start the Gemara. So we said there are three types of animal food mentioned in the Mishnah over here. These are Amir, Pke Amir, Kefin, and Zerin. What are they? Amavuna. Hen and Pkin, Hen and Kefin. Pkin and Kefin, the two first ones mentioned in the Mishnah are the same. They're both straw. Straw is meant to be animal food. Okay. So what's the difference? What's the difference? Pkin tray, Kefin closer. Pkin are tied in two places. Imagine yourself a bundle of this long animal, vegetable, animal food tied in two places, like two rubber bands or two knots. Kefin, three. It's a bit of a harder work. You have three knots to undo. So there are three. And both of them are animal food. All you got to do is you have to open them, and that's all. Zerin, on the other hand, the third item mentioned in the Mishnah is Zerin the Arzi. Zerin the Arzi are something different. Zerin the Arzi means something, these are twigs, little branches of the erez, of the cedar tree, of the cedar of the wood. Those are usually meant for firewood when they're hard. This guy, what he did in the Mishnah, what some people do, they take them and when they're still soft, when they didn't yet get hard, you give them to your animal. But that's kind of like a new creation. It's something that's meant to be for firewood, and you change its destiny, making it into something different, animal use, and those you're not allowed to do. V'achikoma. So far we just defined what each one of the three. We have three boxes. Yeah, we have three items here. This is Rav Huna. Again, Amir, Kefin, and Zerin. Pkei Amir is kash, the straw tied in two places. Kefin is the same thing with three ties, and zerin are the twigs of the wood, harder wood, hardish. Now, and what does the Mishnah say? V'achikoma, and this is what the Mishnah says: Matirin pkei amir lifnei behema. One is allowed to be matir, to undo the pkei amir in front of the animal. Umefaspesin. The first two items you're allowed to do both hatorah and pispus, meaning you can undo, unknot, and also mefaspesin, you're allowed to spread them out. Okay? V'adin lekefin. It applies to both. Why do we say kefin? Because kefin is harder. Kefin, instead of untying two, you untie three. And also you spread them out. But that's okay. Why? Because those items, the chiddush is, you're allowed to not just let them undo them, also you can spread them out, even though the spreading out is a tircha. Spreading out is a level of harder work, and it's not so necessary. The animal would have eaten it without it. You are being nice to the animal, you're spoiling the animal, and even though it's a bit of a tircha, because of the tsar of the animal, you want to, pamper your animal on Shabbos, you're allowed to do the tircha. And Rashi says, mischamemin, because otherwise, yeah, he doesn't like the food. If the food is all tied together, the animal doesn't eat it. So you have to be mefazer. Not harder to chew, but they're not attracted to it because it doesn't smell it so nice. She wants them to be spread out and smell better. You can smell it better when it's all spread out, and then the animal is happier to eat them. Otherwise, wouldn't eat them so much. Zerin, on the other hand, you can't do anything with. Why not? Because the zerin, bichlal, are not meant for animal food. So when you start undoing them and mefaspes them, you kilu change the destiny. You changed it from firewood into the animal food. So even though you knew from before Shabbos that will be for the animal, it's not muktzeh, but the mice it's considered as a new creation. It's be'etzem a new creation here. Yeah? Because that's like you change from A to B. You now made it into animal food by untying them. Even the untying is osir. It's a creating a new thing. Oh, and therefore, Omar Rav Chizda, Rav Chizda is explaining Rav Huna. My time with the Rav Huna. What's behind Rav Huna's words? How do you explain Rav Huna? Kasovar, Rav Huna thinks like this. Lemitrach boich lo torchinan. To be toreach in an existing food, you have food that's already food, meaning you have the animal food that's for sure animal food. It has no other use, no other havamina, nothing. That is a straw. The first two cases, all you do is untie it, and beyond untying, you go spreading it out, pushing, spreading, bit of a tircha, that's allowed. For the animal's sake, for the animal to eat, you're allowed to. That's okay because for the animal, so the animal needs to eat. But l'shivui oichlo lo meshvinan, to create ex nihilo, to do anything with the animal food that's not supposed to be animal food. Says Rashi, because the my lavla oichlo. Now you're making it into food. That's like being moilid. You're creating a new thing on Shabbos. That's not allowed. That's too much. Imam is creating a new thing. And that's also Midrabanon. It's not any of the 39 melachos, but it's against the spirit of Shabbos to change the destiny from A to B. It's like a creation and it's also. Ad Kan, the words of Rav Huna. Let's recap. So what did Rav Huna say? Rav Huna said the first two, Amir and Kefin, you are allowed to do whatever you want, to untie and to spread out lefasbes, because that is tircha, justifiable tircha for the animal. Mashenkin, the third item, zeirin, are hard. Zeirin like erez, zain zain. The zeirin, the erez, is something that's meant not for animal food. When you untie them, you make them into animal food. You create a new reality here in your kavana, in the way you designate it, and that's also for Shabbos. You can't make a new thing on Shabbos. That's what Rav Huna holds. Now, that's Rav Huna. Rav Yehuda has a whole different explanation to the Mishnah. Rav Yehuda says, Rav Yehuda Omar, hen pkin, hen zeirin. Rav Yehuda says no. Pkin and zeirin, number 1 and number 3 in the Mishnah are the same. Amir, pki amir, and zeirin, they happen to be the same.
Both dried up.
Yes, they're both shiboilim, they're both straw. The amir is tied in 2 places, and the zeirin in 3 places. Okay? So therefore, says Rav Yehuda, hen and pkin, hen and zeirin. Pkin trei, pkin are tied in 2 places, zeirin tlosa. Meaning, what Rav Huna said about kefin, he says Rav Yehuda about zeirin. Now, kefin arzi, the middle one is odd one out. The one that's the arzi, which is very different to the other two. It's really harder kind of wood, which is right now softer, but will eventually get harder. That is kefin the arzi. They are the ones, the strange one, the odd one out in the middle. And how do you read the Mishnah? Let's read the Mishnah, the 3 items according to Rav Yehuda. Matirin pkei amir lifnei behema. One is allowed to be matir, to undo the ties of the amir. Amir, everybody agrees, is the same thing. What is it? It's a straw, the bundle of straw tied in 2 places. You're allowed to be matir, undo it. Aval pispusi loy. You're not allowed to spread it out. Why? Spreading is spoiling. The animal is being a bit of a hard eater, but the animal could eat it without it, and you are just doing tircha, extra tircha, in order to feed the animal. That's not allowed. The kefin. Now the second case, which is the odd one out, pispusinam mifaspesinan. The kefin you are allowed to mifaspes. Why? Kefin are the pieces of wood. The pieces of wood, when they are tied together, the animal would not eat them at all. And even when they're stuck together without being spread out, they're all like kind of crunched together. The animal won't look at it. So the kefin pispusinam mifaspesinan, you are allowed to do that pispus to kefin, to the tree, the woods, the wooden pieces. The wooden pieces, what about them? You're creating something new. So what? You're allowed to create something new on Shabbos because of Tzar Balachayim, for the animal to eat. Just the opposite of Rav Huna is Rav Yehuda. He says to spoil the animal, no. To create the basic food for the animal, yes. אבל לא הזעירים לפספס אלא להתיר. According to the Girsa we have in our Gemara, Zeirin again is the same as the first item. The third item and the first are the same. Let's look at the chart. The cash of the shiboilim you could be matir no lefasfes. So is the third item the zeirin. The middle one you can do whatever you want. That's the kefin, which are the wooden pieces. Now, Omarove my time with Rav Yehuda. What's Rav Yehuda's reason? I'll tell you what. Tasovar Rav Yehuda thinks Shvui oichlo mashvinan. You're allowed to create food on Shabbos for an animal. As much as we don't like to create things on Shabbos midarabonon, however, for tsar balechaim, says Rashi, mishum tsar behema shari. It's allowed because of the pain, the anguish of the animal. It needs food on Shabbos. Therefore, you're allowed to create the food. Mitrach baruch lo tarchinan. However, to do the extra tircha in the first and third case, you have food already. The food is untied. The animal, he doesn't like the smell, and you need to spread it out so the animal will smell it better. Don't do me a favor, Mr. Animal, and I'm not going to do tircha, the extra tircha for the existing food. That much Chazal don't allow you, according to Rav Yehuda. So mamish two opposites. According to Rav Huna, you're allowed to spoil the animal, but you can't create new food. According to Rav Yehuda, you are allowed to create new food, but not to spoil the animal with the extra tircha, extra hard work. Okay, 1 second. A small break. Now, let's see how the second part of the Mishnah works according to Rav Yehuda and Rav Huna. What did we learn in the second part of the Mishnah? And we are now in the second wide line in the Gemara. Tanan. En meraskin es hashachas ve'es hacharuvin lifnei behema bein daka ubein gasa. You're not allowed to cut the animal food in front of an animal, whether it's a younger, smaller animal or the big, sturdy animal, and whether the food is shachas, which is naturally soft, or charuvin, which are naturally hard. Why not? My love, what's the story over here? Why can't you cut it? Charuvin dumia de shachas. Probably the isser is to spoil the animal. And the charuvin that we talk about are similar to shachas, which means naturally shachas is like sprouts. Shachas is sprouts. As pasta, something very soft. And charuvin are usually hard. How can you lump them together? Charuvim, you know charuvim. What? As pasta. Shachet is as pasta, as peset. As peset is like sprouts. It's something grows very quickly, 3 times a month. The Gemara says in the Basra and Perek Shlishi, it grows 3 times. Something grows very, very quickly, very watery, very green, grows very quickly, and the animals like to eat it. So now, we assume the type of charuvin we talk about are similar to shachas, meaning, ma shachas derekichi, just like shachas is normally naturally soft and chewable, chewy, af charuvin derekichi, the charuvin also are of the relatively softer type, the charuvin, and you are not allowed to chop them in front of the animal. Alma, that is to say, oh, you see the choira, then you're not allowed to be toreach with food. You see that if the food is nice and softish, and the cutting is just extra spoiling for the animal, then we're not toreach. V'tiyufte de Rav Huna. You see against Rav Huna, right? It's a challenge for Rav Huna. Because what did Rav Huna say? Rav Huna said that you are, yes, allowed to be mifanik, toreach, and spoil the animal. Here we see otherwise. Rav Huna says, no. Rav Huna says, I would read the Mishnah just the opposite from you. Shachas, doing the charuvin. We're talking here about shachas that's similar to charuvin, meaning, what does it mean? Macharuvin da kushi, just like charuvin normally are dried and already hard, of shachas da kushi, the type of food you're allowed to actually deal with, is charuvin that are hardish, and the shachas is hard, right? And because of that, right, and you can cut those that are already hard. You can't do that because that's creating the food. It's so hard and inedible for the animals, Both charuvin and the hard kind of shachas, when you cut them, you make it from a non-edible to yes edible. That's creating the food, and of course that's usher. I kept saying all along, says Rav Huna, that it's really yeah the inedible you can't turn into food. Frag the Gemara, how could that be? What's the story exactly? How could that ever happen? Because shachas is always soft. How can you tell me the shachas is hard, right? Says the Gemara, Be'ili Zutri. We're talking about animals, ayorim ktanim. We're talking about the real young, little, cutesy animals like ayir. Ayir is no, it's a big animals. Ayir is an animal donkey. Yeah, the baby donkey. Yeah, so for the baby donkey, even the regular shachas is hard. And for him, you have to chop it very, very small. Otherwise, it doesn't work. I mean, not too small, not to be doing toichen, but you should cut it for him. For him, it's impossible, and therefore you can't feed it to him. What do you feed him on Shabbos? Something else. Or you cut it before Shabbos. But to make from non-food, because for him it's non-food, he can't deal with such big pieces. So for him to cut it into pieces is making the food. And making the food, says Rav Huna, for sure is also. But if we been talking about big animals and softer food, and all you need to do is the extra spoiling, extra five-star chef, Michelin chef, to do the tircha, that is allowed according to Rav Huna. Okay? Adkan, the main part of the shir. Now we're going to see the second part of the very last part of the Mishnah. How does that play into game? Let's read the Mishnah again according to all the opinions. I invite you now, yeah, Akiva, you can look at the Mishnah again, go up to the Mishnah and see how we learn the Mishnah according to both. I will now show you, Bezos Hashem, how to learn the Mishnah according to both Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda. So starting with Rav Huna. Oh, I'm sorry. Matirin Pki Amir Lifnei Behema. You're allowed to undo the Pki Amir. Amir is nice, straw, meant for animal food, clearly animal food. You're allowed to untie it with faspesin. You're also allowed to spread it out and do extra work so the animal likes the food. It's a kefin, and the same applies to kefin. Amir and kefin are the same except for 2 or 3 ties. But animal food you can spread out according to Rav Huna. You are doing extra tircha by spreading and moving? Good. You can do tircha for the animal. Avalois zerin. But zerin, you're not allowed to do what to? You can't do anything to the zerin. Why? Zerin are a bundle of wooden twigs, and they're not really meant for animal food. When you untie it for the animal, you're creating animal food. You can't create on Shabbos. No, that you cannot do, says Rav Huna. And according to Rav Huna, what did the next piece said? En meraskin lo shachas v'lo charuvin. You're not allowed to cut. Yeah, you can't chop the neither shachas, those vegetables for the animal, those shachas, the sprouts, v'lo charuvin. Lifnei behema ben daka ben gasa. You can't take something that's hard for the animal to eat. We're talking about a young animal that it's hard for that animal to eat the food, like the charuvin. And when when you chop it, you make it edible in the most basic way. So you make it from non-edible to yes edible. That's not allowed. Rabbi Yehuda matir b'charuvin l'daka. Oh, now comes a surprise. Rabbi Yehuda, and we don't yet know why, he allows you to do the charuvin for the daka. What? We're not there yet. You're running to the Gemara. We're not there yet. I'm rereading the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda allows you to cut the charuvin for the younger animal. Let's read now the Mishnah again according to Rabbi Yehuda. I'm in the Mishnah again according to Rabbi Yehuda. How do we read the Mishnah according to Rabbi Yehuda? Matir Pki Amir Lifnei Behema. You're allowed to take Pki Amir is the same. All you're allowed to do is only be matir. You can only untie the knots, but you cannot spread it out. Why? Spreading is spoiling. Extra work, don't work too hard for animal. One's not supposed to work hard on Shabbos, not even for the animal. Let the animal work hard. What are kefin according to Rav Yehuda? They are the wood. The pieces of wood, you're allowed to do everything. Because if you don't do all 9 yards, but the wood, it's not going to eat it. And therefore, you're allowed to create it from non-food into food to change it. That is allowed. Otherwise, there's no way the animal would eat. Avalois is zeirin. Zeirin is the same as amir, and those you're allowed to just untie. You can't spread them out. According to Rav Yehuda, I'd read the second part of the Mishnah. En meraskin lo shachas v'lo charuvin lifnei behema ben daka ben gaso. One is not allowed to be merasek, to chop the shachas or the charuvin in front of the animal, whether it's daka or gasa. How would Rav Yehuda say? Rav Yehuda would say, that is to say, you're not allowed to take something that is edible, is nice and crunchy and softy and good, and to give it the extra chopping, extra care. You're not in a 5-star hotel. Don't do any extra tircha for the animal. Now the Gemara is going to challenge Rav Huna from Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. We did not yet deal with one opinion here, and that is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. What did Rabbi Yehuda say? That charuvin ledaka, one is allowed to chop. What's charuvin ledaka? Think about it. Charuvin is a harder thing, right? Charuvin normally, naturally, is harder for the animal to eat, and the behema daka is the animal that's finding it hard to eat in general. It's a small little cutesy animal with weak teeth. So Rabbi Yehuda says charuvin ledaka is allowed. Okay. The Gemara now will challenge again Rav Huna from the words of Rabbi Yehuda. The truth is that I would stop here, and tomorrow I'd like to see the piece with Rabbi Yehuda Matir B'chuv and Ladaka, and from tomorrow should start with the Toshma. So I'm sorry I'm cutting this year short today for personal reasons. Okay, tomorrow Bezos Hashem, remember everybody, Toshma Rabbi Yehuda Matir. We are in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines from the bottom of the page. The word starting Toshma Rabbi Yehuda. Tomorrow, hopefully, we'll have a full shir, Rabbi Yehuda, and continue with the next Mishnah. And next week, we should be finishing the Masechta, Bezos Hashem. Thank you, Hatzlocho, Vrocho to everybody in Torah Anytime. What an amazing website. We have Aliyah in the 3 weeks. Hatzlocho, and seeing Mashiach soon.